Hey everyone, welcome back for episode 6 of Unwritten Rules with Tmac. Sorry I'm one day late on the episode, but we've had a lot of movement over the last few days in the MLB Playoff Races. I have my 5 against the spread picks for you for week 4 of the NFL, and we're inching closer to a world first Queen Ansarek kill in World of Warcraft. First, we're going to jump into the playoff race updates for the Major League Baseball season, and I'll begin with my team, the San Diego Padres. Tonight, we locked up number 1 wild card, 5-3 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks, coupled with the loss for the New York Mets tonight. The Padres are the number 1 wild card. They're going to be hosting home games here, playoff home games in San Diego beginning on Tuesday. We're still waiting to know who that team that we're going to be playing is. Currently at a 92-68 record. A little bit of a disappointing end to the Dodgers series. After game 1 of the Dodgers series, we were down to a 2-game deficit in the division. We really thought if we swept them, we were going to have a shot to win that division. We end up losing the last 2 games. It's a little bit of a heartbreak, but winning game 1 clinched the playoffs for the Padres regardless. It wasn't the number 1 wild card, but it guaranteed us at least one of the 3 wild card positions, which was a great way to go out. The way we clinched that game in order to go to the playoffs, that's historic, right? I'm going to show you guys the play here. It was a triple play. It almost looked like the Padres were going to blow the game. They had Robert Suarez, their closer, in. He's been awful over the last 8 games with a 9 ERA, but we're going to go ahead and watch the play here of the final play of game 1 that clinched the Padres into the playoffs against the Dodgers a couple days ago.
Rojas on the ground at third. Machado touches third, fires to second. Out at first.
What an unbelievable play by Manny Machado, right? Most players grab that ball, automatically throw the ball to second, trying to get a double play. He had the awareness that said, hey, this ball was hit pretty good to me. I'm right at the bag. Backpedals a couple steps, tags the bag, throws it to Cronenworth at second. Cronenworth throws a strike over to Solano at first. Triple play to end the game. What an unbelievable thing. I jumped up in my house. I'm like, yeah! I was screaming. You know, my text messages are blowing up. My friends are texting. I can't believe this. What an unbelievable way for the Padres to clinch a postseason berth here in 2024. Obviously, the job wasn't finished then, but losing 4-3 in game number 2, and then game 3, the wheels sort of fell off for the Padres. They ended up losing 7-2. So the Dodgers ended up winning the National League West. The Padres have clinched, as of tonight, the number 1 wild card. We currently are going to wait and see who our opponent is going to be, and they'll be playing here in San Diego on Tuesday. I'm not sure exactly what time yet. The times are still to be determined. I will be online in the morning. Hopefully I am able to secure a few tickets, and hopefully I will be at that game on Tuesday. So we're going to go ahead and see what happens here. But National League is pretty much set. Braves, Mets have a doubleheader come Monday, which could decide the last wild card team, who's in, who's out, who's coming to San Diego, who's going to be playing in Milwaukee, etc. So let's go ahead and see here come Monday. That'll be the determining day of deciding when all these matchups or who all these matchups are going to be against. And that's going to be for the National League, obviously. Over in the American League, what a comeback for these Detroit Tigers. Tonight they clinch a berth, an AL wildcard berth. They're guaranteed a playoff spot. Meanwhile, the Royals also clinched a playoff spot. So the AL wildcard is done. You have the Baltimore Orioles, you have the Kansas City Royals, and you have the Detroit Tigers. The 3 teams are going to represent the American League in the postseason in the wild card. The Twins and the Mariners have been eliminated. The Mariners were eliminated yesterday. The Twins were eliminated today, as they did lose again, with the Tigers winning. The Twins finished the season 12-25 over the final 37 games. They were still 6 or 7 games above 500, and they're eliminated. So 37 games ago, they were almost 20 games over 500. What an absolute collapse. Not usually a way that a manager is going to get to keep his job. Rocco Baldelli, former player, former Tampa Bay Ray. Really likable guy, really good player back in his time. But you don't tend to get to keep your job when you blow a playoff chance like that the Twins had so far this year. So we'll see what happens with the Twins in the offseason, but the Yankees clinched the AL East a couple days ago with their win against the Orioles. So the American League is pretty much set, ready to go. Major League Baseball playoffs are almost set. Just waiting on the final teams from the National League, and we will be all set to go with only 2 games left for most teams and 3 games left for the likes of the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets due to the rain out last week. So can't wait for MLB playoffs. Hope you guys are excited. Tuesday, everything's going to get rolling. We're going to go ahead and move over to the against the spread picks for you guys this week. Like I said, I'm going to have 5 more for you, just like I've had the previous few weeks. Again, last week we were 2-3. Week number 2, we were 4-1. So that puts us at 6-4 on the season. So 6-4, we're a little over 500. So let's hope we can increase that a little higher over 500 this week. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you guys, and we are going to go over my picks for all of you for week number 4. So we're going to go ahead and start off here. First game that I'm going to have for you guys, Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers. I'm going to be taking the Minnesota Vikings plus 3 points over the Green Bay Packers on the road. I think it's just time to start believing in maybe the Vikings. I've been a doubter of Sam Darnold and the Vikings in general this year. Starting off hot. Sam Darnold looks like a different guy with Kevin O'Connell as his head coach. He's breathed a lot of confidence into him. He has a star wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, who did not look slowed at all from the quad injury that he had suffered in week number 2. So I'm going to buy in on the Minnesota Vikings this week, beating the Green Bay Packers, who are still without Jordan Love. They do say he's questionable to play this week with an MCL sprain. I don't think you're going to see him on the field this week. I think you're going to want to let your franchise quarterback, who you invested a lot of money into, I don't think you're going to want to rush him back from that. I expect to see Malik Willis, the backup, in. So I do like the Vikings this week, plus 3 over the Green Bay Packers. Moving on to game number 2, we're going to be looking at the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. I love the Saints plus 2.5 this week. Poor showing from them last week after what we saw in the first 2 weeks of the season where they were blowing teams out. Granted, one team was the Carolina Panthers, who is probably not a team that you can look at and say, hey, you blew them out, and that's good. Just because we know they're not that great, at least then. They actually looked a heck of a lot better, obviously beating the Raiders last week with Andy Dalton, but that's besides the point. The New Orleans Saints have a legitimate defense. They can stop any team in the league. The Atlanta Falcons have been coming down to the wire in every single game this year, and it's come down to the last 2 weeks of Kirk Cousins trying to make a game-winning drive. One was successful, one was not successful over the last 2 weeks. The Falcons are 1-1. I expect to see the Saints defense continue their hot stretch. I expect to see Derek Carr return to what we kind of saw in the first 2 weeks. The Falcons still don't have a top-flight defense. I expect to see some of the receivers from the Saints, like Rashid Shaheed. I expect to see him get loose a little bit for some deep throws down the field. They are going to be without Chris Olave, it seems like, due to a concussion, so they are a little short in their weapons. Alvin Kamara, possible reported broken rib, so a little bit banged up for the Saints, but I think their defense is too good for the Falcons to be able to overcome. So Saints plus 2.5 over the Atlanta Falcons, pick number 2. We're going to go ahead and jump over to the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to be pick number 3 for you. I like the Texans -6 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars have been maybe the worst team in football outside of the Panthers. And now that the Panthers actually have a competent quarterback and Andy Dalton playing, they may not be the Panthers may not be the worst team anymore. I think you might be looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars as the worst team in the league. They've lost 8 straight games if you date back to last season. Still 0 wins here this season, 0-3. Trying to avoid an 0-4 stretch here to begin the year, which would definitely put Doug Peterson, the head coach, on the hot seat. The Texans had a terrible performance last week against the Minnesota Vikings, losing 34-7. So I don't expect them to have 2 bad weeks in a row. This is a young team. Sure, but this is a team last year that you saw was on the up. Everybody expects them to be a playoff contender this year against the Jaguars team, who may be one of the 2 worst teams in the league. I expect a big bounce back from the Houston Texans this week, -6 against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. 4th pick here, we're going to move over to, we have the Buffalo Bills against the Baltimore Ravens. This is kind of a surprising line to me. I understand that the Bills are going on the road into Baltimore, but the Ravens are lucky to not be 0-3 this season. Okay, they're 1-2 currently, and they very easily could be 0-3. The Bills have looked probably like the best team in football through 3 weeks. Josh Allen has been uncharacteristically protective of the football. He's somebody who normally turns the ball over a ton. So far, he has not done that. He's going to need to continue to protect the football. They have a great ground game with James Cook at running back. Josh Allen has some new weapons this year that he's starting to integrate into the offense a little bit better. I expect the Bills to win this game outright, and they're an underdog pick. So I like the Bills plus 2.5 on the road against the Baltimore Ravens this week. And the final pick I have for you guys this week, we're going to move down to the Monday Night Football game. The Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. The Seahawks have maybe been the surprise of the league through the first 3 weeks, so I actually like the Seattle Seahawks plus 3.5 points on the road against the Detroit Lions. The Lions have looked shaky so far to begin the year. Their run game can't be denied. David Montgomery, Josh Gibbs, unbelievable duo tandem in the backfield for the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff has been the problem for them so far this year. He turns the ball over way too much. He's not been consistent. He needs to play a lot better in order for the Lions to get to where they want to go. But I think the Seahawks being 3-0 and not losing so far is a surprise to everybody. I don't think anybody expected them to be good. You have a veteran quarterback in Geno Smith who protects the football, keeps you in games, and their defense has been much improved through the first 3 weeks of the season. Give me the Seattle Seahawks plus 3.5 against the Detroit Lions. That's pick number 5 against the spread picks. We're going to go ahead and move on. We have some updates here for the World of Warcraft race for World First. If you're into these things, you've been watching this race over the last week and a half, almost 2 weeks now that we're coming up on, you can understand and you can respect how difficult the boss that they're doing is, right? Not just this boss, but the last 3 bosses have been bosses that take 300 or more pulls nearly, which is very uncommon for most. 300 pull bosses don't happen a lot, especially having 3 of them in one raid. It's very, very uncommon for World of Warcraft, but you can see how tuned this is towards the World First Raiders this time. After this race is over, after the first couple kills of this boss, you're going to see a lot of nerfs to these bosses in the raid in order to allow everyone else to kill these bosses later on, or, in the next month or 2. So right now you currently have Liquid, the American Guild. They're in the lead overall. They had a poll today. 15.2% was the lowest they'd got the boss. They're already 309 polls in. 15.2% health. It's like, 15%. That's actually pretty low. It's a lot of health still. There's still a lot of optimization that's required from the whole raid group among their damage cooldowns, their healing cooldowns, placement of different mechanics throughout the fight. There's a lot of work to do at 15% still, but you can feel it starting to get a hell of a lot closer to an actual kill. A couple of the things that have come up over the last day or the last 12 to 14 hours, do they have enough damage with the current composition of 20 people to actually kill the boss before the enrage timer? And that is something that they're, like I said, they do math equations and everything else that they're currently running data and numbers on to see if they even have that, right? They're debating if they want to go from a 4 healer composition to a 3 healer composition and add an extra damage dealer. And if you do something like that, some of the experts in this field will tell you it takes 100 to 150 extra pulls or extra attempts on a boss if you're going to have to make a strategy change such as that. So it's definitely one of those things where you don't want to do it, but it may be something you have to do and you don't really have a choice. So Liquid currently 15.2%, 309 polls. You have Echo, the European Guild, who's currently playing as I'm recording right now. They've had 246 attempts on the boss. The lowest they've gotten at 27.3%. So you can see there's only a 12% difference. There's about a 60 or 70 pull difference, just because the way resets work, everything's based off of American, as Blizzard is based here in California. everything gets reset on American West Coast time, and European World of Warcraft servers get reset a day later. So they've technically played 1 day more. So that's why there's more polls from one of them versus the other. Tomorrow morning when Liquid wakes up, they'll be at about an even amount of polls as that goes. That's just kind of how it goes. It goes back and forth, obviously, as they sleep throughout the night. And then third place, you actually have a very respectable third place right now. Method, the Guild Method, that's the name of them. They're in third place. They have about a 50% pull on this boss. Not anywhere near as far into it as the first two guilds, but this has been a guild that's been rebuilding over the past 3 or 4 years. The majority of the players in Echo used to be in this Method guild. There was a scandal and all these things that happened due to, one of the players playing for Method at the time, and it kind of broke the guild apart, and the main players all left and kind of reformed a new guild called Echo. But they've currently rebuilt themselves back up after that issue a few years back, and they are a very respectable third place this tier. They continue to improve over tier over the last 2 years, and they've really cemented themselves as a top 3 world guild at this point in time. There is a Chinese guild who's similarly close, around a 50 to 60% pull. So it's definitely going to come down to the wire. Before I'd kind of said, hey, maybe it'll die on a Saturday, which is going to be in just, of 12 to 14 hours, that'd be the end of Saturday or whatever. I don't think you're going to see a kill on Saturday at this point now, especially obviously if they have to change the comp and run 3 healers versus 4 healers. Because you're obviously going to have to learn a hell of a lot of new things as far as when do we use cooldowns for healers now, because you have less cooldowns to use as you only have 3 people healing versus 4. You're going to have to basically learn how to heal the fight over again. So I don't think you're going to see a kill on Saturday. I think you're going to see a sub 5% pull, maybe a sub 8% pull, something like that. But I think this is going to push into a Sunday and maybe even a Monday, depending on if they have to go to that third 3 heal composition rather than a 4 heal composition. And obviously if one guild does it, then that's probably going to set the example that says, hey, the other guild is going to do it as well. But we're going to go ahead and see what happens. So those are kind of the updates. This is a super quick podcast. I was a little late on it this week just because I had some things going on. But I wanted to make sure I produced something for you guys, got something out to you, especially for the Against the Spread picks. I want you guys to get up on those every single week. So I can't wait to talk to you guys again soon. Again, we have San Diego State Aztecs men's basketball preview coming out here in a few days. Again, October 1st, Tuesday. Can't wait to share that with you guys. Going to have a lot of great information in it. Can't wait to see you all then. Have a good night.